Hello, my name is Marty and welcome to From the Court to the Kitchen. Today we're going to do something that's a spin-off of beef stroganoff. We're going to have our beef, cut them up into nice strips, have a nice sour cream sauce that goes on top, but we're going to have a twist to it. Check this one out. You're going to love it. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is put on the rice. I use a long grain rice. I'm going to actually flavor that up with some nice chicken stock. And by the time that rice is finished, the beef is going to be done. Watch how easy this is to do. I'm going to use a cup and a half of white rice. Now you can use whatever rice you prefer. It's not going to make a whole lot of difference to the actual recipe. 3 cups of chicken stock. I used a cup and a half of rice. I'm going to dole it up with the stock. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of butter. About a half a teaspoon of salt. And this is pure sea salt. You're going to add your chicken stock. And bring that to a boil. Cover it tightly. Turn it down to a low to medium heat. And forget about it for 15 minutes. Now normally I use a fresh spinach. But all I have is frozen bag right now, so I'm going to poke some holes in this bag. Put this in the microwave for about 2 minutes. And this is going to be one of the last things that I add, but I wanted to do it first. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is mix up our spices that we're going to season the steak with. Now I prefer to pre-mix my spices because I want to kind of put it on my meat evenly. So I'm going to show you how to do the spices, and you can actually use this application for pretty much any kind of meat that you want to do. We're going to start with 1 tablespoon of granulated garlic, 3/4 of a tablespoon of black pepper, 2 tablespoons of onion powder, 3/4 of a tablespoon of sea salt, 1 teaspoon of coriander seed. And this is so fragrant. I love the smell of coriander seed. This is ground coriander seed. 1/4 teaspoon of nice cayenne pepper. And a 1/4 teaspoon doesn't seem like it's a whole lot, but trust me, it makes a difference to the flavor. Not that it's going to be super spicy or even spicy, but it's going to add that special little, that hint of heat that you look for. And finally, 1/2 teaspoon of nice chili powder. Now just mix everything up. And now when you spread this on anything, on your meat, steak, fish, chicken, whatever, it's going to actually go on even. Now the next thing I'm going to do is get my skillet going. So I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of olive oil and 2 tablespoons of butter in my skillet, getting it ready for my steak to be dropped in. Oh, it's going to be something special. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is slice up this ribeye into thin slices. Typically, you're going to use a sirloin. That's traditional for a beef stroganoff. I'm not a traditional type of guy. I like to infuse old school with new school. That's what we're about to do right now. It's going to have some different flavors, things that we're not used to having in a beef stroganoff, but I promise you it's going to be nice and tasty. Showstopper, feeling like nothing else. I'm going to start by slicing up my onion into some nice thin strips. And again, when you're cutting anything, make sure you try to use proper technique. Make sure those fingers are tucked out of the way. You do not want to lose a digit in your food. Now the onions are nice and slice up into thin pieces. And what I'm going to do is, once my heat is ready in my skillet, I'm going to drop all of these in and just let them kind of saute and become a little translucent before I put the steak and the other spices and seasonings into that particular mixture. Now I'm going to start cutting up my steak into some nice thin slices. And again, you see the fat in here. I like the fatty content of a nice ribeye. It just adds more flavor to everything that you cook while you're using it. And you're going to cut them into about a 1/4 inch strip. So I'm going to cut these back and I'll be right back at you. My onion down. Now it's time to season up this meat and go heavy on it, because again, you don't have a lot of salt in here, so it's definitely not going to be too salty. So take advantage of the fact that you have some nice good spices in here that you can use to help bring out that flavor of the steak that you guys decide to actually use. And make sure everything is completely covered. You can also let it sit for about 10 or 15 minutes to make sure that that flavor is absorbed into the meat. So by the time you actually have your onion finished with sauteing, then you're going to drop this meat in and let it brown. Now with the onion all ready, drop that meat in. You don't want it to cook too fast. A nice slow brown. And make sure that you follow proper safety measures when using or dealing with raw meat. You want to make sure and wash your hands and everything that you use with it. Now my meat is right at about a medium to medium well, and I'm going to now add about a tablespoon and a half of this nice spicy brown mustard. Add about a tablespoon of flour, and then mix that well. And this is going to help the sauce thicken up, and it's going to add that flavor that you're looking for, because as it thickens, all of the flavors from those spices are just going to be popping. I'm going to add about a 1/4 cup of red wine. Now typically a beef stroganoff recipe is going to call for a nice white wine, but again, I'm not a traditional type of guy. Now you're going to want to cook this nice and slow, so you can turn the heat all the way down to almost like a simmer and let it cook nice and slow, and you can see the gravy starting to thicken up. The next step we're going to do is actually make that sour cream sauce that these types of dishes are so famous for.
All right. ATB.
For the sauce, we're going to start with 2 tablespoons of butter.
What's happening? Don't take this rapping the wrong way.
2 tablespoons of minced red onion and 1 tablespoon. Now at this stage you're going to add some of that good spinach. This is the stage where normally you would add mushroom, but because again this is not a traditional beef stroganoff, I'm going to use spinach. Now you're going to make sure all of that water is squeezed out of the spinach. You're going to let that saute for about, give it 5 or 6 minutes on a medium heat. And make sure you mix all of those good seasonings and spices and all that good stuff. Mix it all together. And taste it. At some point you're going to want to have to drop some salt on it. Not very much, just for flavor. Once it's done, you're going to separate this. Half of it is for plating, and then the other half is going to be used for that stroganoff sauce. Now you're going to remove this from the heat and replace it with your meat. And then take the spinach and pour it all in together. Again, this is definitely not your traditional, but it's going to be every bit as good. Add about a cup of sour cream. That's going to add that tanginess that we're so used to with this beef stroganoff. But make sure that that heat is cut on low. You definitely do not want to cook this fast at this point. And there you have it, a classic spin on a traditional dish. Now it's time to plate it, and watch how fantastic this is going to look in the end. And the rice is completed. Now all you have to do is fluff that up and then plate. Okay, now it's time to get down to that nitty gritty. Y'all know this is my favorite part. But the dish came together perfectly. The flavors were amazing. And I'm about to throw down. Okay, this is my favorite time here. The twist on this beef stroganoff type of dish was with the spinach and then with the rice, using the actual chicken stock for that as well. I'm using a red wine as opposed to a traditional white wine, but let's taste this and see what happens. Meat is tender. You will not be disappointed. Oh wow. Steak is tender. The chicken stock did something special to the rice. The spinach is popping. All I can say is, and you know what it is, this is a slam dunk.